the idea of romance being promoted, and a lot of it feels false and saccharine, just artificial. It's not authentic. I think a lot of people are really jaded about what love is because they've had love and now they associate pain to love. And it's not pain, the love is not the pain, it's the loss of love that people fear. And so I thought maybe we could have a little conversation here with me in the beginning, and then you guys can take over about what really is love and its incredibly powerful force to shape us, because there's nothing on earth more powerful. Nothing will take someone to their knees quicker, I don't care the strongest warrior on earth, man or woman, than the loss of love. Nothing lifts you higher than love. When you're totally in love, what's wrong with life? Nothing. You don't have any money, you don't have any background, you'll figure that stuff out because love is that fuel. And I think it's so important that for people to think about that it is how we're wired. Babies that aren't physically loved, that aren't held, that don't have kinesthetic love, develop something called failure to thrive syndrome, and they can die. Love is our evolutionary advantage. Many species are born and, the parents aren't there. It's an egg that hatches. And so the evolutionary advantage is they've got horns or they got teeth or they got camouflage. But if a human baby's left alone in the forest, no one's there, it's gonna die. Our evolutionary advantage is that we fall in love, which means we will put someone else's needs ahead of our own. And I think that's critical. And that doesn't have to just be intimate love, in the form of physical intimacy. It can be the love of chosen family. It can certainly be the love of family. And we've certainly experienced a whole explosion of that with this modern family we have here, and with our daughter who's just shy of 2 years old now. It's been an explosion of love, wouldn't you say? Well, my mission is to have the people feel loved and cared for. Sometimes love is too strong, they don't believe it, but when you're up there sweating for 12 straight hours, the third day in, people get converted, they start going, this guy really means it. But the most successful leaders that I know are heart-driven leaders. I mean, what makes you a leader is you care about something more than yourself. You care about something, whether it's your family, your kids, or your community, there's something you love. That's where energy comes from. That's what changes life. So I hope that we all know what love is. We all know we can't live without it, but we've all had disappointments and pain. And I hope that those out there will reconsider that love could be something you could open yourself to in the first steps of just kindness and just caring and just warmth and love that's outside an intimate relationship. And if you can find that outside the relationship, it can also lead to the intimacy that so many people are craving. Everything you do is love. You're the love to so many people. You're love to this whole family. You're the love to all the people in our companies. I mean, you exude it in every way, sweetheart. And the biggest mistake I think with love is thinking that love is something you go get, or a relationship is where you go get love, when I think a relationship is where you go to give love. We all have practiced that. That's why there's more, there's never less for anybody. And I think the ultimate test in a relationship, whether it be a deep friendship or anything else, is what are you willing to give for this? When you're in love with somebody, you give anything. You're lit up by what you give. You're not saying, what am I getting? The minute you start measuring, what are you getting? Now it's a trade. It's a horse trade. It isn't love anymore. It's an exchange. There's nothing wrong with an exchange. You can do that in business, but even the most successful business people that I know, they love their clients. They fall in love with their client, not their product or service. Or another way of looking at it is our daughter who, we want to make sure she understood sign language before she could speak. So a lot of frustrations with children is they're trying to communicate, but no one understands. So now she speaks, obviously, putting a lot of words together, but she'll go to like her music class or something, and you guys know, she sits there, rubs her heart, which means, please. And then she'll say, please, and put her hands up. She wants to hug everyone. The kid's like smacking her aside, get away from me. Doesn't stop her. She keeps coming like a love bug. And why is that? Because that's all she's seen. All she sees is us. Everybody hugs, kisses, loves, acknowledges. And love is also how you express it. A relationship is often the sum of communications you have. Dr. Gottman, who's probably the greatest expert in the world on intimate relationship love in terms of sustainability, he has a 91% success rate in watching a couple talk for 15 minutes and saying whether or not they'll be divorced within 5 years. And the reason is there's certain ways of communicating that turn people off. When you roll your eyes to your partner, when you're non-responsive, you look somewhere else when they're communicating to you, when you are telling your partner what to do, when you're trying to control them, there's certain issues that just kill the experience of love. No one wants to be controlled. But I think the way to look at the love in your life is say, how can I expand at the most basic level the caring and kindness I have for the people around me? I know that some studies have done with kids that are very violent. And there was a group in Texas that I worked with years ago, probably 25 years ago, and it was in this high school. And they got these kids to care for animals. and they learned to care and love an animal, and then it started transferring to humans. Maybe you don't have what you want yet, or you're in a relationship that doesn't feel like there's a lot of intimacy or closeness. Maybe it's time to get closer to some of your friends and build the muscle up, so to speak. You know, honey, you're unbelievable at self-love. I think it's because of your connection to God and your way of looking at life. And other people say, well, I can't love others because I don't love myself. I don't know if that's that absolute. Where does your self-love come from? And I mean that in the highest regard, because it's one of the things that inspires me. I think loving yourself is as simply as doing those little things that you would do for someone you love. They're kind things, they're gentle things, they're conscious things. It's like creating room for them, or like me not wanting you to have to go through that. So all right, I'll cancel the meeting. You know, it doesn't matter who it is. But then it's you at the same time saying, no, this is what's best. And both of us operating from a frame of we're not trying to get what we want. We're trying to serve the other. That's what love is. That's what you do with your child. That's what you do with your dearest friends. That's what you would hopefully do with your intimates. So what gets in the way of that is not that you don't just love yourself, because quite frankly, you know, I would say for a good portion of my life, I wouldn't say I didn't love myself, but I certainly didn't flow at the level it does for you. But the reason I bring this up is if you're hard on yourself, being hard on yourself separates you from love. But I also want people to know that if it's hard for you to, quote, love yourself, you can be kind to yourself. You can do some simple things for yourself you do for others. And if your wiring is, I got to do something of value, then do something of value. I want people to know it can be more than you can imagine, but you have to not just love yourself, you have to get outside of yourself. You got to find something to serve you care about more than yourself. That's when your fears and your angers and your frustrations disappear, is when you're serving. And as long as we're in our own self, it's just the nature of the mind is to dissect, break things down, find out what's not right, what's not good enough. So you can leave that by service, and you can also still be service of yourself. And then the other thing I just want to mention is what kills love more than anything else, or at least, you know, intimacy for sure, is the law of familiarity. The law of familiarity says that if you're around anything enough, you tend to just take it a little bit for granted. You know, somebody gets a brand new car and they're a young kid, or you're a young professional and that car represented some hard work you did forever, or had some image for you or some identity for you. And then you get in the car and it's amazing, and then one day there's a scratch and you're like, oh my God, I can't believe somebody scratched my car. And then, you know, next day you scratch, and after about 6 weeks you got 4 or 5 scratches, it's a car, you know? But unfortunately that's how people treat their relationship. They get used to it. The things in the beginning you would never say to your partner, you wouldn't say to a stranger, you say to your partner because it's safe and it's not kind. So I think we all have to constantly, you and I do this, all three of us do this. We know that our love is a accumulation of our communication. And we talk about how much we love each other at the time. I say, how did I get so lucky to get you? How did I get so lucky to have this extraordinary family? How did we get lucky to have our daughter? It's those conversations that are sincere, that are ongoing with yourself as well as your partner or with your friends, that make it happen. But the law of familiarity is natural, unfortunately. So is gravity. But if you let gravity, you'll be on the ground. You have to push against it. And I think what a lot of couples and a lot of friends even need to do is reawaken the newness in their relationship. And that's just by getting curious again, and again, by being less judgmental. I always say to people, you know, people say, how do you have this ability to influence people? Or parents will come to me sometimes and say this to my kid. And, well, why do you want me to say it and you're not going to say it? Well, because they'll listen to you. But it's not that. It's that I don't judge anybody. I know we're all here at Earth School. I know we're all figuring it out. I know people make giant mistakes. I know most people have done or said something at some point they wish they never have. And our culture is totally unforgiving of that now. But reality is that's humans. And so you can't really, you're not going to consistently influence somebody for a greater good while you're judging them. But if you're loving them and they can feel that can get through almost any barrier. And that's how we've been on the suicide interventions, the people so stuck that, you know, there's no way you're going to get through them. But we get through to them, and I get through them as well, by truly loving them. And if you do that not once, not conveniently, not as a technique, if you do that enough, you can get through to anybody. There is no force greater on earth, and there's no more attracting force to your life. All the beautiful people in our life, honey, that we consider chosen family are attracted because we love them unconditionally and they love us unconditionally. And it's like, it's a virtuous cycle that everyone deserves to have. But it requires you getting out of the conditioning of trying to protect yourself. And it requires to be vulnerable. It requires you to give up the negativity that you have just because you're afraid of being disappointed.
Yes.
And the jadedness, as long as you keep that jadedness, it might look cool or act cool, but it's going to leave you empty.